Hey, listeners and ladies and biz. Today we have a super guest, and her name is Emily Milling. And Emily is here today to just satisfy those myths that are out there about podcasting. You hear all kinds of stuff about podcasting, and she's going to start clearing it up. And she's going to give you a better understanding of why it's really important for businesses to consider having podcast as part of their marketing whole program and strategy. So, hi, Emily.
Hi, Penny. How are ya?
I'm good. I'm so glad you're
I'm
here.
so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about podcasting with another podcaster. It's so
Yeah,
fun.
no, me too. Hey, would you mind just telling everyone about your business, your company, what you've been up to for the last 5 years so they'll get a better understanding of your expertise that you have in podcasting?
Yeah, for sure. So I started podcasting just over 4 years ago with my first podcast called Her Name Is. It's a podcast about creative women in Toronto that you should learn about. I did it with a co-host, my friend from high school. She's amazing, Jenny Tang. And it was a documentary style show because those documentary like Serial was getting really popular. The Gimlet Media stuff was getting really popular. So we thought we would do the same thing. Unbeknownst to us, it was a heck of a lot more work than we anticipated. And when we went out to meet these creative women, we were like, we are so inspired by these people. We have to go out and do our own things. So that turned into me making a horror film with my partner. And I learned more about sound and audio through that, doing the sound design and writing the score for that. And then I started editing podcasts for other business owners, and I started my own business to pay off the debts of the film that we made. And it just turned into a full-time gig. So for the last 7 months now, the whole focus of the business, the Ultimate Creative, has been on podcasting and helping entrepreneurs, specifically women and non-binary entrepreneurs, to launch and grow their podcasts. And I do that a couple of ways. The first way is through my course, my online course called Podcast Rocket. And then I do one-on-one services, production services with entrepreneurs, and I just do it all for them. And then the third way, of course, is with my podcast called Ultimate Podcast Marketing. And it's just a podcast about podcasting. So you can tell I just live and breathe podcasting. And it's funny, I have not gotten sick of the word yet. So something to that.
Well, I know when I first started my podcast, I had a different reason for starting it, but I didn't really, I was kind of like really shocked to find out how much I really loved it and how
Yeah.
much it was giving back to me. I thought I was giving back to everyone else, and then found out it was the tables were turned. So learning from both of us, you'll find out if you do start podcasting, you'll be pretty surprised by how hooked you get onto it.
Oh, it's so
And
true.
yeah, and I actually, my sister and we're just developing another podcast together, and it's going to be about readings for authors, and we're going to critique it, and we're really hyped about it.
That sounds
But
great.
let's talk about some other people, and I know you've seen lots of businesses around. And what are you seeing right now? Why do you think they really should consider podcasting at this particular point?
So I think that there's never been a more opportune time to start a podcast for your business because, of course, we're all going through a time where we cannot connect with people the same way that we used to. So giving ourselves the opportunity to listen in and create a community for the people that we want to be connecting more with, podcasting is a really, really great way to do that. You have a really good opportunity to create an intimate connection between you and your potential clients. A lot of the times this used to be networking, in-person networking, but now it's either social media or bust, right? And on social media, you have 5 seconds or so to catch somebody's attention. And hopefully if you slide into their DMs, you're going to give them the message, like send them the message they actually want to hear, and they're going to respond to you. With a podcast though, they're inviting you into their ears every single week to be like, I want to know what Penny is talking about because Penny has the expertise in this subject area, and I know she's going to bring on the guests that I want to hear from to grow my business. So this is like someone's carving out a specific amount of time to engage with the content that you have created, especially for them. And that is a huge, huge bonus. That's a huge leg up over your competition who doesn't have a podcast. They've only got the stuff on social media. So I think if it really if it speaks to you, if it's something that kind of calls to you, you're like, I really enjoy this audio medium. I know that I can like lace up my sneakers and go for a run and get a whole bunch of podcasts in if I listen on 2 speed in one morning in one go. If it's pulling at you, it's something you should absolutely try out because, as Penny said, like there's something really addicting about it. It's such a huge confidence booster. It just like it could take you to so many different places, and it's a great community builder. Great way to just connect with people on a really intimate level.
So one of the things, and I know we were looking at some of the notes we wanted to both talk about today because we were both so excited about this. And one of the things I know we both hear this is people saying that they're really concerned that it's going to take them way too much time to do podcasting. So what do you recommend for people that are interested in starting a podcast, but might not feel like they have the time to do it right now?
Yeah. So I always say to people, like, it doesn't need to be a big production or a big deal. I love doing big production, super fancy, fun stuff. And so when I started my podcast, I was like, it's going to be a video. It's going to be like hours and hours long. And guess what? Nobody wanted to listen to or watch that much stuff because it just me talking for hours was not that great to listen to, let's be real. So, kind of to scrap a couple of those ideas. But what I did learn is that people are really into right now, like 15 to 20 minute long episodes that are super easy to digest. They do still like the short form content. Some of it can be long form, sure, if it's more entertaining and stuff. But the business stuff specifically can be more short form. So if you think about batching your episodes out, if you plan out a list of the episodes that you want to do and base this all on your business activities that you're going to have throughout the year, right? So I am batching out 4 episodes for the month of October, and they're all centered around my Podcast Rocket, Podcast Rocketeers, who are the people who've done my Podcast Rocket course, because I'm promoting this course through the month of October. So I'm showing the transformation. I batch recorded them all in 1 week. I gave myself like half an hour per interview, so it's about 2 hours of recording. And then I actually hired a podcast editor for myself to hold myself accountable, and I had her edit everything. It takes, I would say, probably twice the amount of time to edit a podcast as it does to record, and you might find a slightly different time.
I guarantee that. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. You easily can use that.
yeah,
30 minutes is going to be an hour for editing for sure.
exactly, right? So like if you think about if you're going to do a solo episode about 15-20 minutes long, you can record for an hour and then expect to edit for 2.5 hours. So per month, that's like an afternoon of an activity, and it can actually inform all of the content for your rest of everything else you're doing, your blogs, your captions, your emails, literally everything. It is such a good way to approach your content strategy. So I love it because it's just so efficient.
It is. And you can use the content so many ways, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about later.
Yeah.
But one of the things I know both of us have probably seen the same thing, but I'd love to know what you see is what is the biggest roadblocks people face when they're thinking about starting a podcast?
Oh, darling, it's all confidence. It's just knowing that you are the expert in your field. And like, it's really hard to believe that, because if you had asked me 7 months ago, Emily, like you are going to have people following you and saying like, this is the person you should talk to about podcasting, I would not have believed you. Because like it's something I wanted. It's something I thought about for a very long time. And all of my clients tell me this too. They come to me, I have a discovery call with them, and they say like, I've been thinking about this for a really long time. I just haven't gotten up the nerve to do it. I bought the microphone 2 years ago. I just don't know why I haven't done it yet. It really just comes down to accepting the fact that you are the expert and that people do want to hear from you. And I think the best way to accept this is to just sit down and hit record and listen to your own voice. Listen to how smart you are. Like, think about it. Listen to it again, I would say, like a week after you've recorded it, maybe, and then it'll really sink in. Like, oh, yeah, I did actually have a really good soundbite in there about that thing that I know so much about. Yes. It's just, it all comes down to practice. But I'm curious to know what you think. What's the biggest roadblock you think for other people?
I think it's that people feel as though they don't have the right voice. Because, I mean, we hear people on the radio that have this mastered voice. They're trained and it's so even keel and it's just so polished. And my voice is far from that.
Same.
But I look at it, I'm going, you know what? Get over it, guys.
Yeah.
I've got great guests. We've got great stories. We've got information to share. It's a real value.
Mhm.
And so I think it's just, and again, I agree with you. It is just practice,
Yeah. It's like
relax,
anything. Yeah.
and you're going to mess up. You really are going to mess up. You're going to
Definitely.
stumble. I still do all the time. But
Yeah,
it,
you're editing all of my fumbles out, right? Right?
yes, of course.
But that's the beauty of podcasting because you can redo it and you can edit it. I mean, we had so many tech problems yesterday. We did have to restart, and that's okay, you
Yeah,
know?
it is. It is. And you know that things just happen and you just roll with it. It's just
Yeah.
like just anything in your business, it's the same way.
Hmm.
But one of the things too, and I'm curious as well, is how can a business keep a podcast going after the initial excitement of launching is gone?
Hmm. This is a tough question.
It is. It is.
Hmm. I would say you need to, first of all, you need to be sharing out the fact that you're doing your podcast at all, right? Once it's out in the world, like tell people about it. And then ask people to rate, review, and subscribe. And the more people you see engaging with your content that are finding a lot of value in it, the more you're going to feel like I must put this out into the world. The other thing is like if you don't batch record your episodes, you're going to find that you're going to burn out on it really quickly. Like I went through that over the summer
I
too.
did too. I
It's
did too.
just
Yeah.
yeah, like it's such a nightmare to think like, oh my god, I have to come up with new content every single week and then I have to rush to edit it and then I have to do the show notes and all of this stuff. But if you batch it, if you do like all of your interviews in one week, you do all of yours in like one day, right?
I
So
do
then
it on a Wednesday normally. I try
yeah.
to do it at least one every Wednesday, but I try to be about 4 weeks or 8 weeks
Yeah.
even ahead. So then if something happens or I have a big client that comes in that desperately needs my help, then I'm not going to be worried about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's like the biggest thing, right? Because so much can take up our time. Like our time shifts and priorities shift constantly. So if you like, if you're really serious about making an impact with your content marketing, not even just podcasting, but with your content marketing and the strategy overall, you do need to have consistency and you must be committed to it. The easiest way to do that is to chunk out a day, get it all done, and do that once a month and forget about it. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's just too overwhelming and too stressful, and nobody needs more stress right now.
I know. Well, I really believe in the grid process, and that's just like that. Even for social media, when I teach Instagram, it's the same thing, is bulk all your light jobs together.
Hmm.
And it just comes back so fast, and you're not always behind the eight ball sort of thing.
Exactly.
But what's one thing, another question, what's one thing you like to tell people that are considering starting a podcast that you think they should know?
I think that if you're thinking about it, like I was saying a couple minutes ago, just sit down and hit record. The tech can be a little bit overwhelming at first, and the easiest way to get around that is to get out your phone, get a voice recording app, and just record yourself talking. List out 5 topics that you're super duper passionate about. It doesn't necessarily have to be about your business or whatever you're promoting that week, whatever. Just talk. And get used to the fact that you are good at talking and that you have a great voice. I know sometimes people feel like, oh my God, my voice sounds like weird when I hear it recorded, but like
It
the
does.
truth is, your voice has always sounded like that, and all of the rest of the world was okay with it. You don't have to apologize for it, to your point. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's you, and that's what people want to hear. So if you're thinking about it, if you haven't done it yet, I would encourage you to just like grab your phone. You're probably listening to this on your phone now. Open up the recording app and just start talking and see what happens. See how far you can go with it.
And don't be surprised if you sound like your mom or your sister or your daughter. It's always such a shock. You're going, that's me. I thought that was my
Yeah.
mom.
Oh, that's too funny.
And one of the other things, and this is a question I'm just going to throw in real quick, is you can make money doing podcasts. Like I know
Yeah.
there's some people saying that you can't,
Mhm.
but it can be slow. Like any business, it's going to be slow. You don't make
Mhm.
money overnight. There's very few businesses I've ever seen like that.
Yeah.
And so it can be slow, but you can. So do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So, okay, so I've got two really great examples. The first example that I love to share is my partner, Justin Declue, and he's actually being interviewed a couple of rooms over for his podcast right now because he's had this show, The Important Cinema Club, for the last couple of years. And a quick thing about sponsorships, like everyone thinks if I'm going to be successful, I got to have a sponsor, right? Sponsors like to see 5,000 downloads per episode. He's got 3,000 downloads per episode, and he's had this podcast for years now, but he makes over $14,000 or so just through the podcast alone every single year, not through sponsorships. Instead, what he does is he's got a crowdfunding subscription service set up on Patreon. And so at the $5 and $10 levels, he's got over 300 subscribers paying him and his co-host every single month for bonus additional content. And he was even, for a little while there, he was doing like a handwritten snail mail newsletter out to people as well. And then on top of that, he's got a product-based business that really complements the podcast content generally. So The Important Cinema Club, it's all about movies. It's all about his take on them and his co-host take on them. And his product business is called Gold Ninja Video. It's a boutique Blu-ray label, and he'll take films that are no longer bound by copyright, or he'll partner up with indie filmmakers and he'll produce new Blu-rays full of special features, commentaries, documentaries, you name it. He's got it all in there. So he's cultivated this audience of 3,000 people. And I didn't even mention his two other podcasts, but there's even more on top of this, all of them movie related.
That's when you start podcasting?
You just keep making, I've got two podcasts on the go right now too, but so yeah, so when he releases these new titles, he'll do at least one per month. He sells out of his inventory like instantly, basically. Like he just did a launch. He'll do it like a limited release. It's very, very collector oriented, this product. So he'll do a limited release, it's numbered, and he sells out of like up to 90% of the inventory like on day one. It's mind-boggling how it works, but it's so cool. But because he's got this dedicated community of people that love his content, he's making something like, I think we just tallied up $30,000 over the last year. And that was the first year doing this product business. So you can really see.
Snowballing.
Exactly. You can really see how it can grow. And to your point too, like it does take time to grow this, but it doesn't require any sort of big sponsorship deal or anything like that. And it really comes down to what does success look like for you? And then I mentioned I've got another example too. So I've been working with a woman named Leanne Kin, and she is a business coach, and she's got a community called Mamas & Co. And she's had her podcast for almost 2 years now. And she said to me a couple of months ago that she doesn't need to be out there selling anymore because the podcast is doing its job. Yes. Because all of her listeners know, and you probably know this too, Penny, like when people are listening to you and they feel that connection to you, as soon as you get on a call with them, they're like, okay, just tell me, how do I pay you? I don't need to know how this process works. Just, I want you to take my money so that I can work with you. Because they've had an opportunity to get to know her, and they like her personality, and they've heard stories from her previous clients on her show that she's interviewed, like their transformations. This is what they want to accomplish, and she's just giving it to them. So yeah, so these are two really, really great ways, great examples, I should say, of how a podcast can generate money without sponsorships. Just ditch them. Just sell your own stuff, you know?
It is true. It's so funny. We're just starting this new one with my sister. And one of the things she said, oh, do we get sponsors? I'm going, no, not really.
Yeah.
There's so many other ways. But it was sort of, you touched on something about when you're talking about your partner and about a smaller group. And it's like when you become a podcaster, your group is going to be smaller, and it's going to be a niche that you're talking to the people that really want to listen to you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you hear about Instagram and they talk about people that are influencers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, podcasting is pretty new right now. So you don't hear about, oh, they're a podcaster influencer, but you're going to. In fact, you heard it from both of us right now. There's going to be lots of things in the future talking about podcast influencers.
Yeah.
And because you don't need this big, enormous thousands or hundreds of thousand people following you. You just need people that really like listening to you and can relate to you, and you can relate to them. And you're satisfying either entertainment or the need for knowledge or whatever it is that you're doing with your podcast that they're finding a value.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now we're going to have to start talking more about podcast influencers.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going
The
to start
podcast
putting the
micro
rates in.
influencers.
For Instagram influencers, I just finished a blog about that, and they say about the rates, which, that you would have for an influencer, just to have a little bit of a note or a mention about your product. So I'm just going to make sure the rates are much, much higher than an
Oh, yeah.
Instagrammer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We've got all the audio gear. We've got the microphones. We got to pay for these extra tech things. Sure.
And actually, that is actually one more question then.
Sure.
Is that how much do you think it cost you to get into actually starting a podcast?
You can do it for as little as, I would say, like $20 a month with equipment that you already have, probably. Or you can invest in a microphone. Like I'm using a Blue Yeti microphone. Those run you less than $200. And if they're more than that, you are being ripped off, just FYI, because I've seen some wild prices on Amazon lately. Yeah, it's just bizarre. So yeah, you can buy that for less than $200, get a podcast host for around $20 a month. I love Buzzsprout right now. Like that is my favorite podcast host. And yeah, like the only other thing that you're going to need is your computer and, an editing software. There are free ones that you can get. So on a PC, you can use Audacity, and on a Mac, you can use GarageBand. Both of those are free. There are lots and lots of tutorials. I've got tutorials on my website too, if you want to check them out. And yeah, and that's about it. You're ready to go.
Yeah, and I think people think you really need to be tech savvy, and really, honestly, you don't. I don't think it took me very long to figure out what I needed. There's a lot of disinformation out there where you feel as though, people tell you have to buy this and that. Yeah. So there's people just like yourself that's out there now helping people learn how to do podcasting. So you don't go and start wasting money.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's one of the things that is a great value for you, Emily, when you're offering, your podcast rocket information. I know it costs money to do something like that, but it's probably going to end up saving you money, because you're not going to end up, number one, wasting a ton of time trying to figure out what microphone is the best microphone, and then maybe going to Amazon and finding out that you bought something that you definitely don't need. And I am speaking from a person that did that. I actually did go and spend up way too much money when I first started doing podcasting. Please don't tell my husband.
You're safe with me on the internet.
Yeah. Well, he might listen to this. I'm hoping he won't, this part anyway. And so it's better to go and for people that are thinking of podcasting, it's so good for your business, because it really does. People can relate to you so much better and understand who you are. So if you're in a service industry, podcasting is very, very important, because they're buying whatever you're offering because they like you.
Yeah.
They're not going to buy from someone they don't like.
Yeah, exactly.
And giving them an opportunity to get to know you. And the other thing is, for Emily, with the podcast rocket that you're doing right now, is that, Emily, just go over quickly for people, just to have a better understanding. I don't want to sound like this in an advertising plug. I feel as though if you're really thinking about podcasting, you should know what's out there and what you have to do to be able to start off. And people like Emily, with her expertise, can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Podcast Rocket is a 5-week program, and it is with moi, Emily Milling, and I'm going to take you through a framework that I have created. I launched this back in May with a beta group, and I reframed everything a little bit to make sure that it's really, really straightforward. So to your point, Penny, as well, like you could spend hours and hours trying to figure out which apps are right for you, or like how to set up your microphone, all of that sort of stuff. What I've done is just laid it out in a framework that's like, this is point A, point B, point C. This is exactly what you need to do to go from podcast concept to launched with 4 episodes. So I'll give you the strategy behind everything. I always start everything with like, what's the purpose behind it? So that's where we start. And then we get into the more tech stuff. How do you edit? How do you prepare to record? And I've also designed it out so that you can like, choose your own adventure. So if you have a particular setup that you want to use and you don't want to watch a different video, you don't have to. You know what I mean? It's like, again, I want to make it so clear and simple and straightforward. Then you get the 5 live classes with the group, with everybody. And then I've also bonused in a couple of other things too this time around. I want to make sure that everyone feels super confident with their launch. So there's like a complete launch template, there's email templates to pitch your guests and everything. I cover it all. I cover everything. And I'll throw out there too. I'm going to have, I think this episode comes out the day after my live class. So there will be a replay of how to start your first podcast in 2020. And you can find that on my Instagram at _ultimate creative, and check that out because it's going to give you, again, a really good overview of what Podcast Rocket is all about and help you figure out if podcasting is right for you. And that's totally free. Grab that from my link in bio, as they say. The cool kids, you know.
Yes. Well, that sounds wonderful. So when this is being published, we've of course taped this early, but this is being published on the October 15th, I believe, is the date that we're doing this. And so you're in the midst right now of really, you can join at this point. So, but
Yeah.
only for a couple more days. I don't think you have many bigger window left.
Yeah, you're right. So the cart is closing on October 18th. So
Ooh,
now's the time if you want to check it out.
yeah.
At a bare minimum, definitely check out all the resources on my website, though, because there's tons of stuff. I've got a free mini course on there, too, if you're curious what it would be like to get into Podcast Rocket. And it's a lot of the fundamentals of getting your podcast started, figuring out if it's right for you, organizing your content, and making sure that this is something you want to actually implement in your business. There's tons and tons of resources on my website, so check that out. And then, yeah, of course, Podcast Rocket, the cart closes on October 18th. And all of that is on my website at theultimatecreative.com.
Well, that's great, Emily. Thank you so much for coming on. And I really do appreciate it because I really feel as though, people are saying, why are you doing this? You're podcasting, you're creating more competition. But there's so much room for great podcasts right now.
Yeah.
There's just over 1 million internationally. Sounds like a lot. It really is nothing. This is at the forefront of people doing podcasts.
Yeah.
And you just need a little help on the way, like Emily can help you out, and hopefully and listen to our podcast as well, which would be important. And we're going to show some links below as well in the writing, so you'll know exactly how to connect with Emily and also to check out her podcast Rocket. So
Thank you
Emily,
so much. That's so kind of you to have me on and to let me plug everything. What a lovely, lovely thing. Thank you.
well, I really believe that I know what it's done for my business. Podcasting has done a lot for me and for my digital business and for Instagram as well. And so just like you said, it grows, it snowballs and everything like that. So I'm happy to have you on, and I'm going to be looking forward to some of your graduates coming and talking to me to get on mine as well. So I'll
You
look
got
forward
it.
to that as well.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, Penny. Have a lovely evening.
And you too. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.